He just flexed in front of me. And to be honest, it is intimidating watching those biceps grow in front of you.
It's business coaching and PTs, online coaches, studio owners, and just helping them be very clear on their journey, build a better business, make more profit. 30 plus years ago, $30 an hour, and then got that 5-year roller coaster journey. And during that time, my rates didn't really change that much. Again, I was too afraid to do things like increase my fees in fear that I might upset people. I was too afraid to do things like enforce cancellation policies in fear that I might upset people or they might start coming back. So number one, the desire was pretty low. Number two, I could make more money doing PT. How do you make your life a hell of a lot easier? Well, you leverage off all these things available to you right now, and you engineer your perfect lifestyle. Create the lifestyle first and then build the business around that.
Welcome to another episode of Tailor-Made Chaos. Today, I am a little nervous, a little intimidated. I'm here with a bulk of a human being. He just flexed in front of me, and to be honest, it is intimidating watching those biceps grow in front of you. But more than the biceps, I'm more intimidated both with the man, his success, and also the setting. It's very, very rare for me to be in any form of professional setting, let alone with microphones, podcast studio, audio noise in the background. Anyway, enough about my intimidation. Good morning, Mr. Brad Shepherd. Could you give us a bit of an introduction of yourself?
Mate, how do I top that? That was a fucking great introduction.
Well, you could top it by giving me your my words of advice before we came on camera.
It is
whatever you do, don't fuck it up.
It is. I love it. It is impressive, isn't it? We love our little podcast setup here. But what's even more impressive is the bougie lighting setup we got now, and all this making us look even better. So, anyway, mate, great to be here, and great to be featured on your podcast. And to give the brief snapshot, who am I? What do we do? Brad Shepherd runs Trainer HQ with Jason Ubanowicz. We've been doing it for coming up close to 20 years now. And what's our main thing? It's business coaching and PTs, online coaches, studio owners, and just helping them be very clear on their journey, build a better business, make more profit.
Mate, sounds like a very aspirational business to be involved in, and to do 20 years in a business with one of your best mates now. I think that's pretty amazing. So they say, the only ships that sink are partnerships, but you guys are going pretty strong. So
it's funny, we hear all these stories, you hear these common things. I don't get into business with friends, with family, all this sort of stuff. And like you said, we've definitely found a model that works for us. And interestingly enough, like we first met on the stage at a bodybuilding comp, in our first bodybuilding comp when we were 15 years old, still at high school. So
wow,
yeah, that's how far that relationship goes back.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to say how far it goes back, because typically with my little podcast, which is not normally as professional as this one's going to appear to be today, it feels like we've got a big budget, but normally what I like to do is just really take it back to the beginning. So, Mate, who was, and this will seem even more rare when I'm sitting near the bulk of a man, but tell me about little Brad Shepherd. What were you like as a kid? Where'd you grow up?
Yeah. Well, right back. Okay, so I was born in Sydney, born in a place called Blacktown.
Oh,
yeah,
Westie.
Full Westie. Yeah,
full Westie.
Did have the mullet one day to prove it. Wore the flannel shirts, all the above, and grew up there, just Greystanes near Parramatta. Played rugby league, did all that stuff, and then started lifting weights. Around about the age of 11, and the only sole purpose was just to try and get stronger for rugby league. Because back then, what did a forward do in rugby league? He tried to run through a brick wall. Had no skills, no talent, and that was the plan back then. But that's where I started getting into training and all the rest of it. And then my parents sold up shop in Sydney, because at the late 80s, Sydney started to increase in property prices, and they went, all right, let's get out of here. Let's go to Queensland and have a change of pace and get a bit of sunshine. So I left, finished grade 9, Sydney. We moved, arrived in Brisbane, started grade 10. I was 15 years old. And at that stage, I'd given up, tired, you might say, from rugby league. Yep. And at that stage, I was going to become Mr. Olympia. That was my only desire and my passion.
Wow.
So rolled into grade 10, and all I did was, pretty much was live the bodybuilding lifestyle. So it was Queensland was the ultimate place to do that. Lived out in the burbs in Strathpine. I got told that a bunch of the Mr. Queenslands were training in at World Gym in Edward Street in the city. And so what I did was I went in the next day, bought myself a 12-month membership there, and I used to catch the train after school every day, 35-minute ride from Strathpine into Brisbane City, so I could go in there and train at the same time as all the Mr. Queenslands.
Wonderful. Now, in and off camera moment before, and a bit of irony.
Yeah.
Who was that?
That was
Who, if we're allowed to disclose on camera, his son is actually now filming this. So it's quite funny how circular and small the world can be, right?
it's incredible. Yeah. And I've watched Grant. I mean, I haven't caught up with him for years, and we saw each other just a couple of months ago, and it was like, wow, that's a real trip down memory lane, because that gym back then, that was a cool location. The late great Alan Bloor owned it. He was a champion of a man. And I remember Grant was in there. Anyway, great memories from that era, that's for sure. And here's me at 15 years old there, all wide-eyed and just like, wow, this is like so cool, you know?
Yeah. So you kind of said a little bit earlier you were trying to be a footballer. In school, were you know, I mean, obviously you've gone on to have quite a bit of business success since that rugby league slant bodybuilding type image. But how were you at school? Were you a sports kid, athletic, or what type of kid were you?
Yeah, well, I'd say that sporting wise, I wasn't that talented. Good at rugby league because I was a bit beefier than some of the other kids.
Yep.
Bit of a chubby kid in the early days. So put him in the forwards, let him run, and let the little kids try and tackle him, sort of thing.
Yep.
So bodybuilding was sort of that sort of pathway for me to go, okay, I can get myself in shape and all that sort of stuff. So school, I got by. I was sort of that person who could sort of find a way to fudge myself through it, do the minimum expectation to get myself to a point where I could get the marks I needed. So I got myself into uni, did all that sort of stuff. But really, the main focus was eating and training.
Yep.
And schoolwork sort of took the third priority amongst that equation.
Fair enough. And so you were training at World Gym in the city, and you said you did a bodybuilding contest pretty early.
Yeah.
How old was your first bodybuilding contest?
15 years old, It was the 1990 Mr. Logan City Bodybuilding Championships.
Yep.
Down in Logan. And here I was, about 67 kilos on stage at my height, all oiled up and, on stage for the first time. And that's where I met my now business partner, Jason Ubanowicz,
Wow.
because he's the same. We're both the same age. We were both 15 years old. And there we met the first day on stage. And we talk about it in our seminars now. We go, here we are again on stage for you, somewhat almost 40 odd years later. But this time we promised not to get down to the budgie smugglers and oil up,
I'm glad, if you were in the budgie smugglers and oiled up now, I would be feeling even more intimidated.
It's a different show, isn't it? And it's probably one people aren't going to pay to attend, isn't it?
Well, I'm just leaving that one unsaid. But so, mate, you went through your bodybuilding phase, so you're sort of 15. How long did you sort of stay doing bodybuilding for?
So I'd say that phase of my life was I went in bodybuilding competitions at the age of 15, at the age of 17 when I was in grade 11, at the age of 19, and then at the age of 21 was when I was fortunate enough to win the Junior Mr. Australia Bodybuilding Championship.
Yep.
So that whole era there, I'd say that whole like teenage era. And so while, going through high school, while kids were out there eating meat pies for lunch and riding skateboards in the afternoon, I was eating tuna and rice every day and hitting the gym every afternoon. So I guess this industry, exercise, everything, and that bodybuilding lifestyle just became my love affair and my passion right from an early age.
So you finished school and you said you qualified to uni. Did you go to uni?
Yeah, did. Yeah.
What did you do?
So I got myself. So the idea was to go and do something exercise science related, exercise phys, something along those lines. Really had no idea, no clarity. So I was. My marks got me into secondary teaching education. And back then, you do two teaching areas. I think you still may do two teaching areas, but that was the option, right? Now, phys ed teaching was the preference because that was human movement studies.
Yep.
But I didn't have the marks to get into human movement studies. But what I did have the marks to get into was English teaching, because
irony.
Yeah, that's right. It is because it goes on popularity. Right, so you got so phys ed teaching's way more popular than teaching English or maths or science or whatever. So to get into maths and science, you could have a reasonably low score and get yourself in. So I get in two teaching areas. So English is my primary teaching area, and I walked up to the office on day one, and I go, all right, you had to pick your secondary teaching area. I go, can I pick phys ed? And they went, yeah, sure. And I went, ripper, I'm in phys ed, human movements, let's go.
Brilliant.
So launched it, got myself in. So I was now in the space of human movement studies, which was excellent, which is where I wanted to be. but still not really clear on, do I want to be a secondary high school teacher? And I'd say the answer to that probably in the early days would have been not really, but happy to just sort of start studying and get myself in the system.
Cool. So you finished your degree?
I did. It took me a long time. I reckon I was, after second year, I'm like, all right, what else is out there? And obviously passionate about nutrition. Went and applied to do nutrition dietetics. Got myself into that. Nutrition's very heavily science-based. I didn't do any chemistry or any of that sort of stuff at school. So found myself in a new course and found myself having to do bridging 11 and 12 chemistry, all this stuff. And I tell you what, one semester I was fucking drowning in that shit, man. I was like,
Yeah.
So one semester in that, you know, it's heavily based around biochemistry and all the rest of it. One semester I went, fuck this, I'm going back to human movements.
Okay.
So yeah, whilst I was in there, probably took me about 6 or so years to finish the 4-year degree.
Yep.
And at that time, you know, became a personal trainer. So was at uni and, you know, was like, all right, cool. Well, the personal training back in 1994, 1995, it existed. There were PTs out there, but there weren't a hell of a lot of them. And it was still quite, you know, you might say in its infancy, especially in Brisbane. So I remember back then that like I saw 1 or 2 people who were PTs, and I sort of thought the PT was a much more aspirational thing. It was like, all right, eventually one day you become a PT. What existed a lot back then was a gym instructor. Great role because you could, how do you become good at writing programs where you just write shitloads of them, people coming in, write hundreds of good programs and take people through it and you become better. So I was doing the gym instructing, but I looked around and I go, okay, this is what a personal trainer does. I go, well, shit, if that's what they're doing and that's what they're charging for, I can do that, if not better.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the catalyst for me going, all right, I can start and become a PT.
And obviously your career has gone on a long way from them, but do you remember what you were charging as a PT back then?
Certainly do. When I launched, I had absolutely no idea what to charge.
Yep.
Was clueless to business. So back then I was about 20 years old, and the going rate for personal training back then, this is a bit over 30 years ago, was about $30 for a 1-hour session.
Okay.
Yep. So what did I do? You know, like we used to have this thing called the Yellow Pages.
Yep.
The young ones won't know what it is these days, but we used to have this big ass phone book, and you know, 1 or 2 PTs in there. I rang them up. How much do you charge? They all broke the first rule because they told me it was about $30 an hour. I thought, ripper, that's what I'm going to get paid. I thought, fuck, if someone's going to pay me $30 to train them, I am in. This is the best gig.
Yep.
Meanwhile, I was working part time while I was at uni at the Beat nightclub in Brisbane.
I remember it. Yeah.
$10 an hour, cash in hand. That was my employment at that point in time. I go, wow, I can like triple my income.
Yep.
Go from $10 an hour to 30. This is the dream. So it launched, but yeah, so the first part for me was just like completely clueless. I had no idea about business. I had no idea how to get clients, no idea about this thing called marketing or whatever. It was just, you know, had no policies, no procedures. If someone said to me that they couldn't afford it, I said it's $30 an hour. They said they can't afford it. My next question would be, how much can you afford?
Yeah.
They go $20. I go, sold.
Yeah. That's still double what I was making as a bouncer at the Beat.
So they were my early days, and I look back on really the first 5 years in the industry as a PT, and I call it like a roller coaster journey, because there were times and moments where, well, in the beginning, I just struggled to get clients.
Yep.
You know, slowly built up 1, 2 here or there, and, you know, but struggled to have any methodology or systems. But eventually, like, people obviously like what I did in terms of training, that they kept coming back. They might refer their friends or family. But it took me a while. But yeah, for 5 years, the roller coaster journey. At some points in time, it could be going okay, and then for no apparent reason, I could lose 1, 2, or 3 people, and that would present me with a pretty stressful situation, because suddenly there was a loss of income, loss of confidence, loss of certainty. So that first 5 years was quite a rocky journey, that's for sure.
Yeah. And mate, we bounced around a little bit, but you did junior Mr. Australia.
Yeah.
And you said you come runner-up. Why did you not continue down that path? Was it injury? Was it just motivation? Was it cost? What was sort of the...
Yeah, so that time there, I just turned 21. Then there was, you got the non-natural federations, and then you got the natural federations. Yep. And the natural federations were relatively new, and there was 2 of them. And it was like I went in one, and the ANBB, I think it was called, and won the Junior Mr. Australia there. Went in the other one that existed called the IMBA, and come second in the Junior Mr. Australia. So I had a first and a second. So then from a junior, you sort of then jump up to open, and you're now with the bigger guys. And I was like, all right, cool. Out of junior, probably got to take a year or two off and sort of, try and put on some size to compete with the bigger guys. And at that point in time, I was started to get into run and do the PT business. And I look back and I remember just going, geez, I've spent really from the age of like 11 or 12 competing, 15, 17, 19. And I go, I sort of have lost a bit of the hunger and a bit of the enthusiasm for it. And I just sort of, found myself going, oh, yeah, maybe I'll think about it next year. And then I kind of went, well, to be honest, I'm not really that excited about it anymore. Yeah, so it's kind of like I'd closed off that chapter and then started to, get into some other stuff like, some more endurance-based stuff and so forth.
So, mate, you were doing PT part-time, you're doing uni.
Yeah.
Were you still bouncing or was it bouncing?
Yeah, working security at the Beat. Now, if anyone's been to the Beat in Brisbane, it's an institution, isn't it?
Isn't it? Yeah.
You would have rocked up there a couple of times, I'm sure.
Even the straight guys go there every so often just to see what's happening. So
the best place to be a fucking bouncer, because downstairs you had the that's called the hetero place where that was just pumping. Disco City, and then you walk upstairs and we've got the gay area and of course anything goes up there. Yeah. But in between both of those up and downstairs, mate, there was never any fights, like
everyone's there just for a good time.
Oh,
right?
Happiest place ever. And I was like, what a cool place. So it kind of ticked the box of work, get paid, your $10 an hour, cash in hand, and an envelope at the end of the week, and social too, because it was a bunch of fun. Yeah, so there's definitely a period when I was doing that. I'm at uni, I'm PTing, I'm working part time in at the Beat, and so yeah, I was juggling all the above. Back to that, when I studied nutrition, I remember I used to do a 10-hour shift on a Sunday night at the Beat.
Yep.
Start at 8 p.m, go through to, what does that make it, 6 a.m.
Yep.
Leave there, had a motorbike then, ride my motorbike to Gardens Point University, get there, and it was still a couple of hours before my 8 o'clock lecture because I was going to punch through till the, to the 4 or 5 hours of classes. I remember getting there and I was fucking dog tired. I'd sit down somewhere, I'd fall asleep, woke up like 3 hours later, go, fuck, I've missed the chemistry lecture or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, kind of what it was like,
Yeah. So what happened? You finished your degree in the 6 years, but teaching wasn't the thing for you, and you went down the PT path. Is that kind of right?
Yeah. So at some point in time during doing the teaching degree, I'm out doing, you do the prac, right, where you go to schools and you hey, Mr. Shepherd's here for 6 weeks and all that sort of stuff. And I remember just being there, just going, this is probably not for me. Like, I mean, that talk about bouncing, that's fucking crowd controlling. You know what I mean? Like I'm out at Marsden State High and these places, and it was different, that's for sure. And at the same time, with personal training, what I figured out, because I sort of crunched the numbers, I'm going, well, hold on, I know how much a teacher can make, and I'm pretty much making that as PT, working half the hours. It seemed like a bit of a no-brainer at that point in time to go, well, it's pointless me trying to become a teacher and pursue that, because there was, number one, the desire was pretty low. Number two, I can make more money doing PT.
So I'd sort of come back to Brisbane around 2003, and around that point, your name was kind of already echoing as this guy who was charging $440 an hour for PT, and there was a whole story there. You were working, I think it was under Andrew Wilkinson at
Healthworks. Yep.
Talk to me about that period where you went from being 95, 96 as $30 an hour. How did you get to be that and kind of be, as a sales rep, you kind of hear these things and it was pretty iconic back at that time. Obviously, it's a pretty big jump in that 5-year window. So just talk to me a bit about that journey.
Absolutely. Well, I guess if we stem back to, kicking off, 30 plus years ago, $30 an hour, and then got that 5-year roller coaster journey. And during that time, my rates didn't really change that much. Again, I became better at what I did. I was always upskilling myself technically and the craft of being a better PT, but still the business side of it and that part I hadn't really grasped. So like I said, that roller coaster journey, I could be cruising along, could have a bunch of clients, things are going spectacularly, and for no apparent reason I could lose a bunch of them. And again, it was I had moments in that 5-year journey where it was like, oh, well, are you really serious about this? Do you want to consider doing something else? And of course, I was doing the early mornings, the late nights, the all over the shop. I had a mantra I used to say, I'd train anyone, anywhere, anytime. And I found myself doing that early mornings, middle of the days, late nights, weekends, you name it. I was too afraid to do things like, increase my fees in fear that I might upset people. I was too afraid to do things like enforce cancellation policies in fear that I might upset people or they might start coming back. So it wasn't until the end of that 5-year journey when I met my first business coach. And obviously at this point in time, I've been in the game for a while, and I got myself busy. So I'm now doing 40 plus hours of PT.
Yep.
Charging still like bottom dollar, but because I'm doing so many sessions, I've got a decent amount of income coming in, to sustain myself.
Yep.
But I was just getting burnt out. So I'm like starting at 5 a.m. till 9 p.m. every day. And back then we didn't have 24-hour gyms, but I remember I operated from a gym called Fit Zone in Central Brunswick in Fortitude Valley. They used to shut at 9 p.m. I'm always training my last client at 9 p.m. The last set of tricep push downs are there, trying to turn the lights off. And I remember saying, oh, fuck, I wish they had 24-hour gyms because I would just keep training clients the whole time. So, but that was around about the era when I met my first coach and sat down and I expressed a few of my concerns and, things were going okay, but I'm like, surely there's got to be more, to this. And, he just sat me down and he just goes, man, I can tell you a couple of things straight up. You're obviously a good trainer. You get results, all that sort of stuff. But he goes, mate, you way undercharge for what you do. Number two, that's the first bit. Second thing, why don't you consider the idea that you could charge your people more and potentially train less of them? Because one of my big concerns was the amount of time and energy I'm spending and the fact I'm getting burnt out, losing a bit of my passion, Yeah. And of course, my response back then, I didn't have the mindset, the growth mindset then. Oh, no way. I can't charge people any more than $30 or $40,
Yeah.
So that was one part of it. And so then he's like, well, would you be open to it? The idea that you could, just charge them a bit more, $5 or something. And of course, did up the letter, all this sort of stuff, shitting myself, $5. Of course, everyone jumped at it. Like no one didn't go for it.
Yeah.
So it gave me some evidence to go, hey man, you're good at what you do. Plus this thing works, this system works. And that's where I started to lean into business. And it was like, that went on a journey there for the next few years. And it was like, okay, cool. Like let's start to put some system and process in place. Let's start to understand the concept of marketing and so forth. And what that led me to do was to go very quickly, because I was already booked out, was to find a trainer and take on a trainer. So that was step number one. It's, get a trainer. And back at Peak Physique, I hired my first trainer, got that going. I'm like, all right, cool. There's some evidence, more evidence that this thing's working, Then I got my second trainer. Now at that point in time, and how did the rates increase? Well, what was happening was I've got myself, plus I've got another 2 trainers. And back then we were probably all about $50. I think that's where we'd hit. So I'm signing people up, and of course I'm $50, they're $50. Everyone wanted to train with me.
Of course.
I'm going, well, fuck, what do I got to do to try and distract these people to trade with the other trainers?
Yep.
Obvious thing was to increase my fee. And so then went to $70. And, it was like, well, when I'm 70 and they're 50, there's going to be potentially a greater reason that they're going to go to the other trainer.
Yep.
So that was one of the reasons. And I guess it was just placing a value against, what I feel like I was worth, and I started to buy into that more because, the first sell for anyone, it's got to be on yourself. You got to look yourself in the mirror and go, am I worth every cent of this 60 or 70 or $80 or whatever you're going to charge,
Yeah.
And then there was a journey where it went up, $70, $80, 90. I'm continuing to grow the team. And because the focus then was to go, well, what I want to do is grow a great team of trainers, which means if I'm in there doing 30, 40 PT sessions a week, what am I not doing?
Team. Yep.
Yeah, I'm not working on the business, on the educating the trainers, etc. So got to $110 a session, and I still had shitloads of clients book it in. I'm thinking, what do I need to charge these people to train less of them? Yep. Love my clients, by the way. Love training, of course. And it was that I made that decision to go, when I change my rates, I'm going to double them.
Yep.
So in around about 2003, it was.
Yep.
I went from $110 to $220 a session. And similar around that time, we shifted from 1 hours to 45-minute sessions. So that was like we sort of pioneered the 45-minute session.
Yep.
So we also bought back some time and some availability. And then, things were ticking along pretty well. Like I had a select group. And what was happening is, of course, I was starting to attract clients that had a higher disposable income, because at $220, someone's doing 2 PT sessions a week. It's it's a decent amount of money they're investing. But my goal was to only do 10 PT sessions a week. $200 a session, 10 sessions a week. I contribute $2,000 to the business, and of course we got the team who are doing their bit.
Yep.
that was all going well and fine. And this is when I moved into Andrew Wilkinson's gym. Was a rent-based trainer underneath the roof of Healthworks on the river at Tenerife. There, we started up there July 1, 2002. I took a bunch of clients down there. I think I had 5 or so trainers at that point in time, and we would have had about maybe 80 or so clients. So we brought a significant amount of revenue into that gym.
Yeah.
And then, things were ticking along pretty well. But I looked around, and in about 2005, 2006, I'd stayed at that for a while. I'm doing 17, 18, 20 sessions a week
still
at $200.
Yep.
And although that's good revenue, do 20 sessions at 200, there's $4,000 a week I'm bringing in. I was losing time, and I was like, well, all right, here's the next jump, right? I'm going to go to 440. That was when I made the decision. And I was working with someone at the time as a coach, as a mentor, and we still have a joke about this because, he was good for me in terms of helping me. But I remember ringing him, I go, mate, I've made the decision, I'm going to go to 440. And he laughed. He goes, mate, who the hell's going to pay you $400 for a session? I went, I got no idea, but someone will, right?
Yep.
Sure enough, within about a week, I rang him up. I go, good mate, I got my first $400 paying client, so.
Nice. Look, I think that really brings back probably a first key lesson for me. And what you said before is, if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will believe in you. And, I think that's a really key point. Mate, obviously this is a great journey. And I think 2008, you started Trainer HQ. So where did you go from that jump of peak physique to Jason and you reuniting? How did that sort of unfold?
Absolutely, yeah. It was cool. So at that peak physique time, so I'd now built peak physique up. Met my now wife, who HP. So she was now part of the business because back to the business side of it, I became good at I guess you call it the business, the marketing side, acquiring clients, building relationships, finding trainers, do all that. Fucking terrible at the back end, right? Hated a spreadsheet. It was like, so we had a moment, which was a pivotal moment where I was, had 6, 7, maybe it was 8 trainers on board. So I'm charging 200 odd bucks a session. Had a bunch of trainers. We're doing over 100 sessions a week. So there was a lot of money coming in, but I also had no financial control or no really, money modeling. I hadn't been brought up with that sort of knowledge. So as quickly as I was bringing it in, I was finding a way to miraculously relieve myself of it, So
Yep.
At HP, my wife, she's meticulous with the money and banking and spreadsheets. And, she sits there with her morning coffee. She's got the bank accounts open and, I walk past, go, look at you in your happy place,
Yep.
And I remember we sat down and I'm going, fuck, I don't know what's going on. She goes, you're shelling, you're just fucking burning money here. Like you're doing this and you're paying for that. And you're doing all this. And sure enough, it was a good lesson for me to go, well, hold on, you got to value this stuff more,
Yep.
So there was the pivotal moment. So what we did was, we turned that term, what was actually not performing great, although there's money coming in,
Yep.
we turned that round very quickly. Once we got that part sorted, it really built, it became really profitable. So I had 13 trainers all at one location and we did 250 plus 45-minute sessions a week at Healthworks. And at that point in time, this is now the era of probably 2006, thereabouts.
Yep.
A lot of people banging on my door, and this is probably where the education degree came into it. I was like, look, I still would like to, because I was teaching part-time at FitLink College,
Yep.
Still educating trainers, and I was like, I reckon I can start to give back and start to educate trainers and find ways to do that. So it all started with make it a CD,
Yep.
deliver some information.
Another
back
thing
then.
that some of the kids won't know of. Compact disc, they do still exist, by the way.
So that was the first thing. Give away some knowledge, and the idea was to, if I could sell these for $30 each, gee, that'd be great. Then I made a training video. This is how you deliver a great personal training session, and you do this and you spot this way and you use these words and all that sort of stuff. So that's where it kicked off, from a information point of view, starting this stuff. And back then, to shoot a video, it's not like we can do it today, how easy we can do it, iPhones and all the rest of it. It was a fucking mission,
Yeah, well, I don't even think the first iPhone was there then.
That's right, that's right.
Puts a bit of perspective around the time. It feels like it was only yesterday, but 20 years ago, iPhones didn't exist. So,
it's crazy. So me and Jason had stayed in communication over the years, and he'd been off, he'd owned gym, and then he had also moved into the personal development space. So he partnered up in a life coaching company where they were educating life coaches, and we tuned in a number of times and shared stories and all that sort of stuff. So I guess we were you might say it's more like colleagues, and in I think it was about 2006, 2007, Jason ran a pilot of a business education program. So he knew some trainers, and he's like, I want to educate them on business, because he'd had a lot of success himself. So he put together a group of people and ran this pilot program, and it went really well. And he got me in. He said, mate, I've got this group of trainers, would you come in and run them through your story? How'd you hire your trainers? How'd you charge $400? All this sort of stuff, which I did. Yep. And then on the back end of that, he's like, man, we got to do something together, Nice. And that's where the first chats about that happened. So I think this is in about 2006, and we got the business concepts started a bit. But at the time, we were both running our own businesses independently. And the idea of Trainer HQ back then, we named as Create PT Wealth was our first name. Yep. It was pretty much a sideline project for us, because we were both. I had no intentions to stop personal training, to stop peak physique, any of that sort of stuff. We go, all right, we're both time poor. Let's run a seminar. Yep. So we got the concept in 2007. Promoted it heavily, and in March 2008 was when we ran our first workshop, and we got through our industry connections. Remember back then there was no Facebook or Instagram or no,
it's a different industry.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, so through the physique, sold it, done something with it potentially, but at the same time it was still heavily serving a purpose. And so what we did was we would sell portions of it to the trainers. So we'd have a trainer who was killing it. They've been with us for 4, 5, 6 years or something, and we go, well, look, you can basically purchase your share of the business and your client base, So, nice. So I slowly, you might say, wound it down, and it was eventually I got to the point of like finishing altogether, and it was actually quite liberating to finally go, all right, mate, you're no longer in this battle of trying to make this thing a success, because you can just put your focus over there.
Yeah, nice, mate. Obviously. We're covering a fair bit of ground here. Fast forward quite a few years now. You're no longer PTing, I assume, but you've kept up a bunch of fitness activities, and our paths have crossed out on the. I don't know. I wouldn't call it. We'll call it the semi-competitive landscape, where you were performing and I was participating, but. Where am I going with this question? I'm kind of going along the lines of you've raised kids, you got the wife, you've had some success. What keeps motivating you to keep doing what you're doing?
Yeah, great question. I've been back to us. We would have first seen each other in the half Ironman course down the Gold Coast, right?
Yeah. Yep.
This has been in the early 2000s.
It was only at the start line, just so everyone's clear. I'd see you. We were both in Clydesdale. So
yeah, how good was Clydesdale's? So
that was what made it. I'd come top 20 because there was only 20 people who entered.
It was the best day. The thing I loved the best, and for anyone who doesn't know, in these events that you'd have 100 kilo plus. I think there was a 90 kilo plus and then 100 kilo plus, and they'd send it off the 90 kilo pluses, but they were mostly like tall guys who would still be lean, right?
Yeah.
And they'd be like sinewy, but they just become 90 kilos because they're so tall, and they were quite fast. And then we'd have the big buffers, all of us who are 100 kilos plus, and we'd be at the start line of the swim when we were going, fuck, we're not built for this shit, are we? So it was a good. It was a fair bit of fun. You'd see your fellow Clydesdales because you'd have the C on your leg or whatever. That's you'd be high fiving them on the way through. Okay, big fella. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, that was that. Back to what keeps all that going. I guess for me, like exercise, and it's part of my DNA, right? So like from such an early age. And I look back and I go that I guess that positive mindset, even from the bodybuild, I guess I refer to it as a bodybuilding mindset in some way. It's like, it's all the habits that created right down to tracking your macros and doing all that. It's like, for me, that shaped the future. And when I left and stopped doing bodybuilding, and I remember did a 10K fun run, and of course that led into doing a half marathon, and that led into running a marathon. And so then I went in my late 20s, early 30s, went through that whole thing of, each little subculture of exercise opens up the next one, right? You do the marathon, do a little triathlon, right? What is that? Next minute you're doing the Noosa Tri, doing the half Ironman. I went and did Ironman. Got on the mountain bike. Yeah, what happens is next you go on the 24-hour mountain bike race, don't you? How many 100-kilometre races have you done out at Hidden Vale?
I did 3, I think. I think there was 200s, and then they did a 110, and then they changed the whole thing. And
yeah, huge, eh? Like it's a long day at the office, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I did some big road bike ones as well, and all your different. They do become quite addictive, and they become a reason to keep training. So So back to my philosophy, I've just loved and all this, that whole journey of doing all those Ironmans and all that sort of stuff. I was still heavily bodybuilding style training and weight training and functional training in the gym. And then when I had kids, so my daughter was born in 2008, around about the same time we launched this business. So it was, as I was saying, it was full on. Yeah. That's when I came from. My wife was pregnant, and I did my last half Ironman then. And I remember back then, because you go out for a road ride, you go for 4 or 5 hours, but have a young family and fucking that's not going to cut it, buddy. So so I had to find some abbreviated style training, and that's where CrossFit was in its infancy. Yep.
And I was like, okay, it's interesting, and I was starting to use a few of the CrossFit techniques with training clients and educating the team and all the rest of it. And I was like, all right, let's give this a little crack, so went along and, of course, drank the Jesus juice and, next minute I'm pulling up my socks to my knees and, doing all the rest of it. And so
became a disciple.
That's right. But yeah, for me, it was like, that was a shitload of fun because I can go in there for 1 hour, get completely fucking smashed and then I've done my bit,
Yeah. So have you jumped on the High Rocks bandwagon?
I haven't, no. I do like the look of it, and I've seen everyone doing it, and I go, what a great fucking business model that one is, hey? Like,
stellar.
That is, that's beautiful because it's repeatable, do the same thing, it's cool. So
yeah. Look, the other one that's I mean, we've been personally involved with is Decker and Spartan, and it hasn't had quite the lift off as of High Rocks, but equally, that's super addictive, super competitive, repeatable. They got a couple of different marks. The Decker stands for 10, and maybe I should push in that direction instead of promoting High Rocks. Go to Decker. But I mean, a couple of things. Artificial intelligence seems to dominate a lot of the conversations, and I hear a lot of people talk about the demise of the PT because of AI. Yeah. Now, me personally, I don't believe that. I think personal is about the person, but tell me, how do you think that's going to influence the direction of the industry as we go forward?
Yeah. I'd say, from the AI perspective, it's like something we heavily teach at Trainer HQ, something we educate our clients on to use. And if you're not using it, it's a bit like video 10 years ago, right? If you weren't using video, picking up your iPhone, recording stuff, you're falling behind, right? Yep. If you're not using AI right now, you're going to be falling behind the pack, right? So that part's critical. Yeah, is it going to come in? And I got no concerns or worries about it replacing, personal training. Definitely hands-on training, that's for sure. It's a bit like, how long before we're going to have robots do plumbing and carpentry and all that sort of stuff. Look, I think, is my personal opinion, I think we're a fair way off all that. Electricians, all that sort of stuff. Same thing with hands-on personal training. Like how can that be replicated?
It's sort of a trade, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's a skill.
It might not be seen as a trade.
It's a skill,
but it's definitely a skill. And I don't think I think AI only enhances aspects of what we do. It doesn't detract from it at all.
Yeah.
So
where a lot of our clients are using it successfully, however, is to help and to augment their already existing, let's say, online coaching business, where to go, well, all right, now I've got this really great plethora of knowledge and information, nutritional suggestions, training programs, all the rest of it. And they're still facilitating that because a lot of our clients who are delivering online coaching will still have personal interaction, client check-ins, accountability, all that sort of stuff. However, from an AI perspective, could, someone who's not getting the one-on-one connection, and let's say, I was your online coach, I'm getting you on a call, I'm getting you, mate, you got to send me through your results, all that sort of stuff. If I was just setting you a program, it could potentially be a generic program, right? And so that may be a place where, you know, we could see some disruption, that's for sure. So again, our message is to go, well, you know, you want to add your human element to it and to make sure that you build that culture and that community where people are sticky to what it is that you can deliver from that perspective.
Oh, wonderful. Mate, again, I think we've covered a lot of broad spectrums. I feel like we could probably talk all day, but we've been on for a while now. Mate, was there anything else you wanted to sort of cover off before we sign off?
Look, I think, you know, from my perspective, we just watched, you know, my 30 years in the industry, we watched this industry grow like hugely. So there's a few things, I guess, when I think back to even those days of like almost 20 to 25 years ago when we were talking about the early 2000s, I remember back then people saying, oh, this PT industry is flooded. You know, there's too many trainers out there and all that sort of stuff. So that's what people used to talk about. Too many gyms, there's too many this, you know, all that sort of stuff. Now, you probably know the stats better than me at participation rates and membership rates in gyms. You know, my assumption is that it's dramatically increased.
Yeah.
Right? If we compare it to 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think if you go back around that early 2000s, say 2005, I think, you know, in Australia, the penetration rate was somewhere around the 8 to 9%, give or take.
Yep.
Fast forward, you know, sort of 20 years onto that, and we're now sitting at anywhere between 18 and 20%.
Yeah, gotcha. So it's more than doubled.
It's definitely more than doubled.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, the other big thing that's changed is just the niche of that, you know, you have your CrossFit group, you have your 24-hour gyms, you have your wellness centers, you know, you have your subsections and your boutiques that then, you know, expand into the big boxes that have just grown exponentially as well. And I think, you know, there's just such a greater awareness of health and fitness now from what it was 20 years ago. So, you know, in a lot of ways, I think our industry's in great hands.
I agree.
And it's going well. It's definitely been a big transition from the private operator to now, you know, private equity coming in, and ma and pa operators are diminishing to a degree.
Yeah.
But there's also, with that investment comes, you know, better facilities, bigger education.
Yeah.
And more awareness around, you know, what we're doing. So
100%. Well, you look at the 24-hour gym model and you look at the original 24-hour gym, you know, it was a very small footprint, wasn't it? It was a very small gym. Now, most 24-hour gyms, to compete with every other 24-hour gym, what are they doing? They're going bigger, they're going better. They've got everything in them, right? So that's a great example of that. But yeah, I agree 100%. So that's my observation. The other part is people out there aren't getting any skinnier, are they? Right?
Glad some people are watching this. As two former triathletes, one still very athletic, the other not quite as much. So,
triathlon days were good, but how much could you eat then? Oh man, Jesus!
Too much. I still maybe eat like that. I just don't train the hours. But anyway.
But yeah, there's the demand is there, right? So there's no shortage of opportunity in terms of people. So I guess the message I'm saying to people is, yeah, there are just shitloads of opportunities still that exist in the fitness industry. And I say for anyone who's worried, concerned about this space being flooded, don't. It's like, you know, we crunch the numbers all the time, and at Trainer HQ, up to 200 people every year join our higher level coaching programs. You know, our main specialities are in gym, you know, rent-based trainers, and some of those go on to build a team like I did, that sort of style. We have online coaches who some of them do hybrid, where they might do a bit of face-to-face, a bit of online, others just purely online. And then we have our, you know, gym and studio owners, and most of the gyms and studios we have are boutique-y style gyms and, you know, MMA facilities and so forth, or straight PT studios. So in amongst all that, what we see is still huge amounts of opportunity out there in this country for someone to get in and to start and to grow a business and to make it successful. Because, you know, for most people, if let's say you're a hybrid trainer and you're underneath the roof of a commercial gym, you're paying your rent, you know, for you to acquire, you know, 25 PT sessions a week, which is, you know, 5 sessions a day, 5 days a week, 45-minute sessions, that's just under 20 hours of contact time, you know.
Yep.
market yourself in online coaching, which is what a number of our clients do, acquire another 20 to 30 clients of online coaching, and you've built a really strong model where that's where we see clients getting into, 3, 4, 5 grand a week, and that's just one person. Yeah. Right? That's even before you've hired anybody or expanded. So, yeah, I guess the thing we know for a fact is there's shitloads of opportunity there, and that's the thing which gets me excited in the future.
Yeah, well, it almost answered what was going to be my next question of what's next. But I think what's next is continuing what you're doing because, PT to a degree felt like it fell out of vogue for a while. And I think PT is continuing to resurge now. And the growth of PT businesses is what's going to keep fueling a lot of the grassroots people over the next 20 years to become the gym owners, to become the corporate franchisees, these type of things. So
absolutely.
I think our industry's in great shape right now.
I agree
and
with
love
you.
what Trainer HQ is doing. So.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And we're at the forefront of it because we see it, and it's exciting to watch. Back to AI, because again, I think about these in a practical sense. If someone's sitting there and they're going, okay, well, how does that AI thing work? If I think about like the marketing, right? So we do marketing, we teach marketing, we know marketing, we learnt it. And what I used to do was spend, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, writing a sales page, marketing headline, sub-headline, benefits-driven copy, all the rest of it, shoot videos, do all the rest of it, right? What would take me 2 to 3 days could now be punched out in 1 to 2 hours, Yeah. It's insane. And this is the part where we go, if you're not using this stuff, then you could be falling way behind. And so I guess back to that, you go, well, how as a trainer, how do you make your life a hell of a lot easier? Well, you leverage off all these things available to you right now, and you engineer your perfect lifestyle. Create the lifestyle first, and then build the business around that.
I love it. Well, mate, I do feel like we could talk all day, but that's the problem with it. We're only missing a beer or something like that. It's Friday morning though, so
now you're talking.
Maybe it's probably safe that we're not. Well, Brad, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I think anybody who's listened to this has probably heard one of the great stories of our fitness industry, and mate, I think your journey at 51, it's still only halfway there probably. So, mate, thanks again for coming on and tuning in to an episode of TaylorMade Chaos.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, mate.